In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. I bear witness that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted and living Christ, now at the right hand of the Savior as the Mahdi, and I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Messiah in this day of judgment in which we now live. It is in their names I greet my family. The greeting words of peace and paradise of Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Let's see who just came in. Sister Shayla, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, everyone.
How are you?
I am very blessed, Brother Lukeman. I woke up this morning.
Yeah, either that or all of us are gone and this is the hereafter. Okay, before we get started, anyone have any wins, any thoughts, concerns, comments, questions, suggestions, corrections, or cognitions before we get started? I know we should at least have some wins. I seem like the spirit is high, and if the tone is up, that means there's been some wins somewhere. Yes, no?
Yes, you're correct. There've been some wins.
Would anyone like to share?
No, not right now.
Okay.
I feel smarter. How about that? I know I'm smart. I just know I'm smarter. How
Well,
about
then that's a win. That's good. That's good enough.
that?
Okay. And we have Sister Ania. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear Sister Ania? Maybe she's still connecting the audio. Okay, quick question. The thought for tonight is that this will be the first, God willing, of many videos that will be placed on a YouTube channel to allow the believers to have access to the information that we cover with regards to the Dianetics and the Supreme Wisdom. Does anyone here have any objections of being of their name being on the YouTube channel?
Make sure you put mine in capital. No, sir. Thank you.
Because what I'm doing now is
No, sir.
okay.
No, sir.
I'm gonna start updating these presentations and making them available so the believers can have access to the information with regards to Dianetics, the Holy Quran, and the Supreme Wisdom, so that, you know, this information is not meant for me to just to keep it. It's meant for me to share it. So that's going to be the goal.
That's wonderful, brother. I'm really glad to hear that. All praises to
Yes,
Allah.
ma'am. Now the wisdom is Allah's, and is not for me to hold on to. That's never been my intent. I just had to find a way in which I'm striving to get things to look a little more professional, and getting them a little more professional, being that they're going to be out in the public. I'm going to start tweaking it here and there and changing things around and making things a little different. But right now, by the grace of Allah, I have about over 100 Zoom presentations that I'm slowly going to start going through and putting them on the YouTube channel. So that way we can all have access to it. And then eventually the goal is to have a list itemized in such a way that if you're looking for a specific topic, then you know exactly which video to go to, what timestamp to go to, so you can hone in exactly where's this concept found in Dianetics or found in the Holy Quran. You know exactly which presentation to go to find the ayat. And then, God willing, I'm also going to have a list of all the references from the Holy Quran in one layout, so that you can go and pinpoint exactly, here's the concept in Dianetics, where can I find that in the Holy Quran? Boom, I can go right to this ayat, the Holy Quran, and I know exactly where to find it. So that's in the planning stages right now. That's where I hope to go with this, to streamline the wisdom, connecting it to the supreme wisdom, connecting it to the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, connecting it to the Holy Quran. Go ahead, Sister Shayla.
I have a question, Brother Lukman, and this is Allah hates and gratitude. I hope on your page or on your YouTube, you put a link that if anyone wants to send a donation, they can. I think we should support anything that is this valuable. And maybe we don't have it right now, but in the future, when we do get it, and we will get it, we can support you, because you have to pay, you have to free up your time and pay someone else to categorize this, things of that nature. You see what I mean?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm actually in the process of building a website. That way, everything's going to be in one place. I'm going to have the Dianetics, and this is all God willing, the Dianetics, the mathematics, the chess, everything that I've been blessed to receive, as far as just my perspective of looking at things that Allah has blessed me to see. I'm building a website and putting on there, and then allowing individuals to pay like a monthly subscription fee. So what I'm really trying to do is I'm not gonna say try. What I'm doing is I have approximately 2.5 years until I retire. My goal is not to retire to go work for someone else. My goal is to get everything in line so that when I complete my service with the fire department, I can then free up my time to do what I love the most, and that is teaching, except I'll be teaching and working for my own company and not teaching for someone else. That's the plan. And I got 2.5 years to get it done. So God willing, I have more than enough time to get this established. And I want to take what I've been blessed to receive and give it to others. So I will be doing that.
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Salam.
Alaikum salam, Brother Lukman. How you been?
I'm doing fine. I hit the wrong button there, Sister Shayla. I was dropping your hand down. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mute you. All right. How are things going in number 7, Brother Salam?
Everything is well. Today we had a fantastic meeting with all the student representative under Brother Abdul Muhammad, sharing a few words with the guests and the believers today. It was a wonderful experience we all had today. And the spirit was very high, very high.
You ready for this weekend?
Oh, I can't wait, brother. I can't wait, because this is something that never happened since I've been in the Nation of Islam since 1971, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or the Honorable Minister Farrakhan called nothing but men, FOIs, to come and see him. So this is something that I can't wait to be a part of.
I know that's right. I know that's right. I'm looking forward to it. That's right. That's right. All right, let's go ahead and get this started. Okay, Sister Patricia just came in. And we have iPhone 2. iPhone 2, could you please identify yourself?
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Sarah Mohammed.
Sister Sarah, glad to have you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Looking forward to it.
All right, I pray Allah that what we have tonight will I'm almost confident that we're going to go down our time track. We're going to find some things. We're going to get some wins. As always, if you have a cognition that you wish to share, please share your cognition, because your cognition can be the solution to someone else's problem. You could free up some theta from someone else's aberrated mind and free them on their own time track just by sharing what Allah has blessed you to see. So the floor is open whenever anyone receives any type of data that could be used by the group to take us further into this program.
Okay, yes. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. With that being said, we are going to revisit Zoom meeting number 2 from April 11th of 2021. But I did go through and I was blessed to see some things and add to it. So the presentation is not the exact presentation as last year. And even in going through it, you know, I sometimes I'm amazed even at how a lot of guides, you know, I won't say guide the pen, but guides the computer, the keyboard, and what I'm able to see. It becomes medicine for me. It's almost like a self-processing, if that makes any sense.
Yes, sir.
I pray a lot that we all get something from this. Let me go ahead and get my screen. Let me share my screen. Let me reduce this down. Let's get this and play this from start. So this begins, I think this is the beginning. Is this the first? Yeah, this is the first screen. This comes from, let me just fix one thing on this computer. Yeah, I'm DJing today, so let me see here. Can I do it? Not gonna allow me. Okay, I guess I can't do it. This has to work good enough. This PowerPoint presentation is based on a statement that was made by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he talked about the language of a scientist. And last year, we spoke about this. A subject matter came up based on a movie called The Arrival. Is anyone familiar with the movie Arrival?
No, sir.
Yes.
Okay. I think I might have a small clip in here. If not, I know I have a small picture. But there was a statement that was made in the movie. And we're going to tie all this together with the tech and with the teachings. But I'm going to first play a small clip by the minister to lay the foundation, our topic for tonight. But first of all, here's our objectives. He speaks about the concept of the formulae. And this was based on a lecture he did titled The Time of What Must Be Done. What was the next part? The Great War, the Great War. And if you remember this lecture he did, he was dressed all in red. Does anyone remember that one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it was done in Mas Meriam.
Yes.
The scientific concept that we're going to speak about is something called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Does anyone remember us going over this concept last year? Was anyone present last year for that one?
Not me, sir. Not me.
No, I wasn't.
Okay, so this might be new for everyone anyway. But we addressed this last year, but today we have some new information that was added to it to actually just today. And really the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, just to give you a quick, to sum it up in a nutshell, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is a concept in psychology that is based on the fact that the language that you use determines your behavior. So basically, if your language is limited, your behavior is limited. If your language is limited, your determinism is limited. So it's like your language becomes the circumference which confines you. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So if our language is limited, then expressing the God in ourselves becomes limited.
Yes, sir.
Allahu Akbar.
Then we're going to deal specific with the language of a scientist. And this is based on a quote given by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, found on page 312 of Closing the Gap, which out of the whole book, I'd have to say that's probably one of my favorite quotes with regards to my study of mathematics and science. Everything I do is kind of rooted on that as well. Then we're going to talk about something called the cycle of aberration. And this is actually going to be based upon ayat from the Holy Quran. And also, again, with that language of a scientist, we're going to be dealing with something called the tone of speech. We're going to marry all this together between the supreme wisdom and the supreme tech. So first, we'll start with the clip. And then at the conclusion of the clip, we'll handle any questions, and then we'll go ahead and move forward. So this is found on the timestamp. If you want the specific point where this is found at, 1 second.
What part is that? Part what?
It's that's not the time what must be done series.
That's just a
Okay.
lecture.
Yeah, that was just a lecture that was done. I can't remember what year that was, but it's not the series that the minister did. This was actually a lecture done at Mas Miriam.
Okay.
And the timestamp is 1 hour, 18 minutes and 40 seconds. And we're gonna listen up to 1 minute and 1 hour, 20. So we're gonna listen to approximately 8 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about these books. Bible, Quran. These are called scriptures, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us is just a part of a greater writing. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that there are 24 wise scientists among us. That listen to the thinking of the people. And they are so wise that when they know the thoughts of the people, they can predict the actions and they write the history. We don't write history after it is done. We write it before it is done and walk into what the scientists have written. Oh, listen. This Quran is just a part of the writing. This Bible is just a part of the writing. And both of these books begin with the making of a people that would rule, disobey God, lose his favor, and create a world in opposition to God. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that we write history to equal our home circumference. Our home is the earth. It's 24,896 miles in circumference, approximately 25,000 years. So we write our history to last for 25,000 years. We are in the 15,000th year of our history. Well, where's the other 10? It said the scientists, when they were looking, a light came up in the 15,000 year that was so bright, they couldn't write anymore because they couldn't see anymore. So the Bible says, listen, Quran 2, seal up the book and write no more. Because you can't write what you can't see. But the bright light that they saw coming was the coming of that mighty Mahdi, who would have the guidance for the next 10,000 years going into infinity. No, I just want you to listen. Here's your Quran. It only takes you up to the judgment. It has no guidance here for the hereafter. It's not in this book. The Bible takes you up to the destruction of the present world And all the books, both of them say is, eye has not seen,
Not hard,
ear
not heard.
has not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of any man to perceive what lies beyond this world. So the book of Revelation says they saw Moses on a distant shore, singing as it were a new song. But they never told you what the lyrics were. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us that that book, he had a vision of it. And the vision that he had of it became the flag of Imam Warathuddin Muhammad and the believing community. He said it was not a big book, it was quite small. See, he told me that Allah is a scientist, the Mahdi. Don't use a lot of words. He speaks like a scientist in formulae. But he was the second scientist. He looks into the formulae of the first scientist and breaks it down, but he could tell us all of it. But just like the scripture says, there are many things that I could tell you, but you cannot bear it now. But when he is come, the Spirit of truth, he said, I'm going to send him. That's not Jesus. Jesus was sent. But here, the man that comes that knew it all but couldn't tell it all. Not because he didn't know it all, it was that we were insufficient in our growth and development to take the power of that message. Listen to me. But he called me his lead minister. He said I was like a lead wire coming from a generator. None of the little light bulbs are sufficient to take the power directly from the generator because it would blow them. He said, but a man was made for him by Allah that could feed directly from the generator, break it down, the complex truths, so that even a fool would find it hard to make a mistake.
Please stand for prayer.
Thoughts, questions, comments?
Yeah, he gave up a lot in that little short period of time, Brother Luke. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What I like about what he said is about the formulae, how Master Fard Muhammad, he don't say much, but much is said when he says what he say.
Mm-hmm.
But it would come a time, and Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a man who was able to take what Master Fard Muhammad, though he did not give all to us, he was letting us know someone would come down the sands of time that was explain what he have given us. And at one time, he told the Honorable Minister of Farrakhan, take what I've given you and give the understanding, something to that effect.
Yes, sir.
And there was a time the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, what I teach is the base of a universal teaching. Then he said, but it's not that now, it soon will become that.
Mhm.
He was letting us know what I'm laying down for you is the base of something that you can take anywhere in the world and find confirmation with other teachings. But at a certain time, another man will come, and we believe that other man is none other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is clearly demonstrating to us that he is actually walking the word that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave to him to give to us, to show us that he's not only sharing it in words, but he is demonstrating in his actions.
Yes, sir.
Those of us who follow him, we have that same likeness. If we study and practice what we study, we too can grow into what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, gods.
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sir, walaikum salam. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. When the minister said being the lead wire and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taking the word and putting it the way he puts it, and then the minister come and take the word from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and puts it the way he puts it, so that even a fool would find it hard to make a mistake. So that made me think of the way the minister has been talking to us lately, from the unraveling of a great nation,
Mhm.
talking about America and the Nation of Islam, the criterion, the swan song, and however he's been talking to us thereafter. He is talking to us so even a fool will find it hard to make a mistake. So that's what I thought about.
You know, based on something you just said and a thought that came to mind when the minister was speaking, have you ever noticed that mainly when you're dealing with movies and TV shows and whatnot, have you noticed that they keep remaking movies from the past?
Yes, sir.
They keep remaking old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought that came to my mind when the minister was talking is, you know, one of the reasons why they keep remaking old movies is because their ideas have run out. So they have no more creativity because their creativity is over. And then when you look at the fact that now they're getting hit with new problems and they don't have new solutions to those problems, this is one of the ways that the world is being destroyed, that new problems are coming to the surface and they don't have the mathematics or science to solve those problems anymore.
That's right.
It's like they have run out of the mathematics to solve these new problems. If you go back to there was the movie called Hidden Figures about the mathematicians.
Mm-hmm.
The one the flight command had mentioned that in order for them to get to the moon, they had to come up with new mathematics. And that one sister basically produced a new level of mathematics to get the space vehicle or the capsule to the moon. She was able to produce a new mathematics to make that happen. In this day and time, the enemy doesn't have the minds to produce new solutions to the new problems that are coming about now. If that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
Oh, yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sister Anya. Wait, give me 1 second. Sister Anya and then Sister Denise.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Beautiful selection that you just played for us, and I appreciate the comments from the brother who spoke and from Sister Tina, and also your comment about hidden figures. That made me think of the phrase that we're told that the white man would be given a peep into the heavens. So though they did not have the mathematics to get to the moon, but Allah through one of our people gave enough wisdom or enough of the new mathematics to allow them to get to the moon. So to me, that was like giving them a peep of what was to come.
Mhm.
And also to show them that, yeah, this is the fall, and that, you know, unless you do straighten up
Mhm.
and repent of all that you've done, along with us too, that they would not be blessed to see any more of that.
Yeah.
I, from what the minister said, my first focus went to when his use of the word formulae, which formulae being plural, I
Mhm.
believe, right, for formula.
Yes, ma'am.
And the wisdom that Master Fard Muhammad brings to us in formula, when you have a mathematical formula, once you understand how the formula works and the principles of the formula, you can take that formula and apply it to any situation. So the formulas that he is using to bring about our rise, to shave off what the whole Willie Lynch and all of that was done to us through slavery. The same formulas that he's using to get us out of that condition is the same formula that he can take anywhere in the world to solve any problem in the world. And as we're learning these formulas, then we're able to take those formulas and use it to solve the problems for ourselves, for the problems of our people,
Mhm.
and for all others, even the enemy,
Mhm.
to solve their problems. And so I think that what you said about hidden figures was a good example of that. And the next thing that really resonated with me was the lead wire, and and the mention of the word generator. Oftentimes we think of a generator as a backup, in case the energy that's normally used, in case it fails. And from the generator, you have the lead wire, as he mentioned, but then you're able to plug in other components into that other wires and other components into it that lead off, that branch off and give power to other things to keep them running. And it made me think about, again, what Master Fard Muhammad said, that we had been giving, we have been given is just a wake-up message.
Mhm.
It's enough of the new teaching that will be given to us. It's enough to get us through the fall of this world.
Mhm.
And as the brother made the comment that you could take this teaching, you could take it anywhere in the world. So it's those are the lead wires and the formula.
That's right.
The formulae that is going out. And we're coming up with new ideas. And I believe that it's based on what Master Fard Muhammad has given, those formulae that he has given. He's not going to reveal it all, but it is enough, again, to get us through this fall and into the new world.
Mhm.
So yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Not too long ago, during the mathematics workshops, we took the formula for circumference and we used the actual facts, because it's one thing to know that the circumference of the planet Earth is 24,896 miles, but it's another thing entirely to prove it, correct?
That's right.
And what we did a while back was we took the formula, and by taking the diameter of the Earth, 7,926 miles, we were able to prove that the circumference was 24,896 miles. And then we took that same formula and we went to each planet, and based on the facts that the Savior gave us, we have either we have the diameter of all these planets, and we can use that same formula to evaluate or prove the circumference of all the planets in our solar system, correct?
Yes, sir. And
Now, now what does that teach us? That teaches us one principle is this: the lessons that the Savior has given us, and this is found in rule number 3 of the 13 rules of instruction, the lessons we have represents the fulfillment of all the scriptures, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This means if we understand our supreme wisdom and the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as given to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that means if we go into a community of Buddhists, we should be able to communicate with the Buddhists in the language of Buddhism, and then give them a deeper understanding of some of the aspects of Buddhism, because there's aspects of Buddhism and aspects of Islam that are one and the same, correct?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
We should be able to go amongst the Baha'i. We should be able to go amongst the Hindu. We should go amongst the Moorish science. And if we know their scriptures, if we know the Circle 7 Quran, if we know the Bhagavad Gita, we know the Dhammapada, if we know the Kitab al-Aqdas, if we know the religious scriptures of these religions, we should be able to communicate with them on a level to show that we have what they call ARC, or agreement. So what the Savior has given us allows us to speak, as the scripture says, the many languages and tongues. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But we have to study our lessons and not just quote them. Go ahead, Sister Denise.
I was thinking about that scripture that says, and when he comes, the spirit of truth, he will guide you into all truth.
Yes, ma'am.
And I thought about that, and Minister Farrakhan being the lead and connected to the generator, and how I don't think there has been no subject that he didn't talk on. I mean, he said, I talked on everything. And so this is the deeper aspect of the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Minister said we have to go deeper into his words. And, as he was speaking to us, all of a sudden, my mind just hung on to his words. And when he used certain words, and you might ask, why did he say it like that? Why did he use the word? And what it did was, when he spelled out the word, I was like, okay, this changes everything. When he uses a certain language. And then I got a chance to see the new movie, quote unquote, Teal. It was very safe.
Oh, yeah.
The movie is very safe. Yeah, very safe. It reminds me of Rosewood, when I first saw Rosewood. That was an actual fight between Black and white people in Rosewood. But they took the ending of it and redid it however they wanted to do it. That it didn't even, they were just angry at each other, but they didn't show the war between Black and white. They just cut that completely off. So I'm seeing how they are doing that and adding their own ending to what it should be, and how they see Teal. And it's like, yeah, we know we didn't do right. And
what
so
you
like, and so what? Yeah, she lied. And So what you gonna do about it? And to have a universal concept where some people say, well, it's just happening to those Muslims, but it's happening to the whole world. You know, the COVID affected the whole world. The hunger, so it's affecting the whole world. And so I believe that we are going into this universal aspect, that it goes deeper beyond what was where the eyes have not seen, nor have the ears have heard what's about to take place. That's what I think.
Yes, ma'am.
That's my opinion of it, sir.
And also keep in mind, our lessons say, and this is in the 18th, lesson number 18 of Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, you know, it doesn't say that the 5% are going to teach only Black people. So the 5% got to teach all of human civilization. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So that's Black, white, red, yellow, and brown. So you have to have individuals in place to get humanity in the language of Dianetics. Now we're talking about that fourth Dianetic, getting everyone to a state of clear or mental well-being. And it's not just based on whether you know, if you have the money, or if you're Black, or if you're got a lot of melanin, or you don't have a lot of melanin. No, the job is to get humanity back to a state where we can all live together in peace. Is that correct? Go ahead, Sister Patricia.
That's correct, sir. That's correct.
You have the floor, Sister Patricia. You're on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I'm trying to look, as I say, parse the part in the video we just seen when the minister spoke about we write the history to equal our circumference. The circumference, my understanding, you know, if we start at a point and go all the way around, picking up data as we go, is that related to that? I mean, I'm asking a question. I'm not making a statement.
Okay. Well, here's my understanding of it. My understanding is this: we write our history in such a way that we record our history in creation, because our lessons say that we write our history to equal our home circumference, a year to every mile. But I've also heard in the teachings where it said that our history is written in the stars. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes, sir.
So we don't just, nearly just put things together.
Right.
We write history in such a way. I'll give you one example. There's a book called Message in the Sphinx. And I believe it was this book. And one of the things that I learned from that book is that there's 2 chambers in the Great Pyramid, and each of these chambers are linked to 2 stars. I need to make sure everyone's on mute, please. Let's see. Okay. These 2 chambers are linked to these 2 stars. And the thing about it is these 2 stars do not line up to these chambers in the pyramid unless you go back in time to a certain point. Now, if I remember correctly, the way it was explained is, if you take all the stars and where they're located right now, astronomers are able to kind of like rewind the clock back to show where certain stars were at certain points in time. Does that make sense? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So being that they can rewind the stars back to previous positions, they have discovered that these two stars align with these two chambers in the pyramids, to the pyramid, at the year 10,500 BC. Not only that, but when you take the Great Sphinx, which represents what? A man's, the body of a lion and a man's head, this Sphinx is lined up at the horizon at and this takes it back at that point in time, the constellation Leo is rising directly in front of the Sphinx. So now, when people want to say that the pyramids were built 4,500 years ago, they have to keep that time frame within the time frame when they've been on the planet. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because once you go outside that 6,000 years, then that shows that they didn't build the pyramids. That we already know they didn't build it because there's nothing in history that shows they built it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how I got on the subject of pyramids, but that's where that conversation went.
Brother Lukman,
Yes, sir, Brother Salam.
I gotta relieve myself right now. I got a conference call with the ministers in New York City.
Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead, brother. Do what you got to do. I'll let you know what time I'm gonna try to get this established and repost it.
Okay, thank you, brother. May Allah
All right.
continue to bless all of us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Salam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Islam.
Islam.
I know where we were. So that's one way that I look at our history to equal our home circumference. If you look at different aspects of our history and you look at these dates, these numbers you'll find in other places. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The numbers seem to pop up in other locations. I'll give you one example and then we'll move forward. When you deal with the study of chemistry, there's a process in chemistry, like we eat carbohydrates, we eat sugars, correct?
Yes, yes.
And
Yeah.
the body has a way of, plants will take carbon dioxide and sunlight and oxygen and produce through, because the trees take in the oxygen. The trees take the carbon dioxide and the oxygen, and the trees will convert that into what's called carbohydrates and water. That's the process of photosynthesis. Okay. When we eat the fruit, we reverse the process. In the body, when the body takes carbohydrates or sugars and breaks them down, there's one part of the process where it's like one of the final steps where the body takes the sugar or the byproducts of sugar and converts it to water. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So far, okay.
Yeah.
This process is called the electron transport system. It's a process of taking electrons, converting it. Then from sugar, your body produces water. So now from carbohydrates, you're producing water, which is life, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The final steps is a protein, and this protein that's a part of this process is composed of 104 amino acids.
Correct.
Now, so this protein through 104 amino acids is a step-by-step process. It's like a process, a ladder with 104 steps to it that takes carbohydrates and produces it to water. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now that 104 is just like the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taking 104 books and producing water for us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Beautiful.
It's just like taking the circumference of the planet Earth, which is 24,896 miles, approximately 25,000 miles. How many miles do we need to come to around the number up to 25,000? If you subtract those two numbers, the difference is 104 miles. Does that make sense?
It's making sense now. I didn't know all
Okay.
of that, but thank you.
So, so the whole point is, going back to the sister's question, writing our history to equal our home circumference on one level, and just as based on my baby understanding, is that there's things connected to the universe. There's numbers that are presented through the study of mathematics and science that are connected to our history, that are connected to us as an individual. So our history is written in creation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That makes
Okay.
That makes sense.
I think if you go to Closing the Gap on page 311, there's 3 quotes given by the Most High Elijah Muhammad, and they both are saying the same thing, but the word is slightly different. And the Most High Elijah Muhammad says, an individual whose religion is not rooted in the universe, you cannot say that that religion is correct. I'm paraphrasing it. So our history is written in the stars. Our history is written in the monuments that we left on the planet. And you can even look at the study of the atom and look and find our history. There were significant events that took place the same year that the Most High Elijah Muhammad was born, the same year that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was born. There were significant things that were discovered on an atomic level on those years. So when individuals study the universe and events that take place, these events that take place are like giving us a clue that something else is about to happen. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, that was a real long-winded answer to your question, Sister Patricia, but does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Praise be to Allah. All right. So let's hit this superior wharf hypothesis real quick, and then we'll get into the main concept. So in the movie, The Arrival, this concept says that the structure of language determines an individual's perception, their determinism, their mode of thought, and their behavior. So one way of looking at it is when you look at our lessons, our teachings say the average person speaks 400 words, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So if we look at the average person, okay, if we look at the average person based on the percentages that we were given, 5%, 10%, 85%, you know, the average of that would be, we would still be in the realm of the 85%, correct?
Yes.
Could we say that? So
Yes,
that means in order for us to get out of that realm of 85%, we have to increase our language. And what this concept is saying, this theory is saying, is that if your language is limited, it goes in 2 directions. If your language is limited, then your determinism will be limited. Your behavior will be limited. And this is another concept that you'll find in Dianetics, in the study that was given to us by L. Ron Hubbard. That is, it's the language. And that's why language is so important for us to increase our vocabulary in our language, because it's the use of language and its wise use that allows us to increase the diameter of our knowledge, to increase the circumference of our activity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So language determines our behavior, our thoughts, what we can accomplish. You know, just by us saying, I can't do something, that language in and of itself is limiting our determinism, yes?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Allah says, kum fayakun, be and it is. Allah says in the Holy Quran in Surah 87, verse 1-3, that Allah creates and makes complete measures and guides. Well, that's our cycle of action. We come up with an idea, then we see the finished product. So we create it, we make it complete. Okay, I see it in my mind. Now I come back to the present time and I do all the measurements and I do all the guidance to manifest that thought into reality, correct?
Correct.
So by using that language, we get things done. When we say, I'm tired, I'm fed up, I don't feel like it, we're using language that further causes us not to be creative or active. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Okay, so we have to change our language. This is
Brother
all.
Luke, mine.
Yes.
I was just thinking about the Beatitudes, and we were talking about the bee, and people they get out of the way of the bee. You know, they might let a mosquito come, but the bee, you're not gonna play with the bee. You're not gonna try to hit it, because you know the bee. Hey, you want me to sting this part of your hand? So you try to get out the way of a bee. That's what I was thinking about when you say be and it is. You move things out of your way, you know, because you're coming. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking about. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. And there was a quote I remember years ago. Every morning when we started up our computers at work, it would always have a quote of the day. Out of all the quotes, I don't remember any of them except for this one. And it says that the man who says it can't be done should never interrupt the one that's doing it. And this is why sometimes it's good not to share our ideas.
Yeah.
You know, it's sometimes, and the minister, there's a video, I'll try to see if I can find a video where the minister even says himself, sometimes it's good that we don't share our ideas. Not until they're completed.
I was told that when I first came in the nation.
What exactly were you told?
To not share your ideas just yet, because once you share the idea and someone hear that idea, then when it gets into the hearing and it gets into that individual's mind, then that person moves out faster on your idea and accomplish it quicker than what you would do, because you're just speaking and not actually physically working. Someone else has started to work while you just, you just roll it out, and then that person grabbed it and move out on it and start working. And next thing you know, he's successful, she's successful on your thoughts.
And that has been a thought that came to mind. And then the counter thought that came to that was that if all the seas were ink and all the trees were pens, we could not exhaust the words of Allah. So as long as I stay humble, then Allah will always continue to give me the information to present. And if other people take it and run with it, then, there's nothing I can do about that. That's by Allah's grace. But at the same time, now I'm going to try to see if I can time a camel. So it says it's the relationship between language and tone. One state of being is relative to the language. Now, I'm going to show us two things, one from Dianetics and one from the Holy Quran, to show where there's two concepts that have 100% agreement with one another between the text given by L. Ron Hubbard and what's given to us in the Holy Quran. But we're going to start with my favorite quote. This is from Closing the Gap. And the quote is from the Most High Elijah Muhammad, and it says, Almighty Allah has taught me that if we study the universe and the nature of the earth, its plants, animals, and insect life, if we study this part of Allah's creation and the natural laws working among them, we will have the key to the understanding of the way of life intended by God for you and me. This is the language of a scientist. So when we look at these areas of study, you have biology in here. You have what's called life science that's in here. When you talk about the natural laws working among them, you're talking about physics. So we're talking about all the sciences. We're talking about astronomy. We're talking about cosmology. We're talking about mathematics. We're talking about anatomy. All the sciences, if we study them, and then we study the natural laws behind these sciences, which is physics, then we are actually learning the language of a scientist. So then we have the ability, as we become baby scientists, we begin to speak to other scientists. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what does this have to do with the tone scale in speech? Well, one thing that L. Ron Hubbard says in Science of Survival, he says that probably the most accurate index of the auditor of the preclear's position on the tone scale is speech. Okay, just a simple little snippet. Okay, and I can't remember who it was that asked this question. I think it might have been Sister Tina that asked this question probably about a month or so ago with regard. Yes, it was Sister Tina. You with me, Sister Tina? Is she still with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You had mentioned about listening to a person's tone, the hearing their speech. And if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, you said it might be difficult for you because of seeing when you want to audit and seeing the person, and we got onto the conversation about the tone of speech is the best indicator. Do you remember that?
I do. Yes, sir.
Okay, that was probably about 2 or 3 months ago.
Yes, sir. Just before I started the self-analysis.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then when she had mentioned that, the thought came to my mind, as long as I can bring back a verse from the Holy Quran, then all bets are off. Then that's proof that this is true. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you went into the science of survival, what it said in the science of survival about speech and hearing the word.
Mm-hmm. Speech and hearing the word.
Mhm.
You can listen to you can listen to how people speak and what they say. And based on the chart of attitudes that you find in the Handbook for Pre-Clears and the chart of human evaluation found in the science of survival, you can pinpoint by how they speak and what they say and know exactly where they are on the tone scale.
Correct.
Okay. Now, where is that in the Holy Quran? So is there a correlation with the tone of speech found in Dianetics and the tone of speech found in the Holy Quran? We're about to show the actual facts on that one.
Mhm.
In the Holy Quran, Surah 47, ayat 29 to 30, it says, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Or do those in whose hearts is a disease think that Allah will not bring forth their spite? And if we please, we could show them to thee so that thou shouldst know them by their marks. And certainly thou canst recognize them by the tone of their speech, and Allah knows your deeds. This is the only ayat in the Holy Quran where the word tone is found, I believe. And it's the only place where tone of speech is found in the Holy Quran. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down this ayat and marry it with the supreme wisdom. We're going to do word clearing using Arabic. And we're going to pinpoint specific words because these are 3 paragraphs, but there's really 3 formulas here. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Brother Lukman,
Yes.
one of the things that I realized when we had that conversation is that I had a misunderstood in regards to the word canst.
Yes.
I thought it meant cannot, but it
Cannot.
actually means can.
Right. Thank you for bringing that up. As long as you can clear that, hit that misunderstood. So when it says, and certainly thou canst recognize, if you think the word can't means cannot, then it says, and certainly thou cannot recognize them by the tone of their speech. But if you clear the word canst, it's an old way of saying can. Did anyone have that misunderstood just now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Sister Tina, thank you for bringing that up. So
say that again. If the can't.
The word canst, C-A-N-S-T, does not mean cannot.
Okay.
It's like an old English way. I can't give it to you exactly, but it's an old way of saying can. So really, if we change the word, because remember the law of substitution says if 2 things have the same meaning, we can interchange them, correct?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that we can change the word, still has the same meaning. And certainly thou can recognize them by the tone of their speech. And Allah knows your deeds. So we're gonna crack this open mathematically and show how we can actually gain an understanding of Dianetic tech through the ayats of the Holy Quran, because Allah says in the Holy Quran that he's given us a book explaining all things, correct?
That's right.
And if he's given us a book explaining all things, but we can't explain the science of the mind given to us by L. Ron Hubbard through Dianetics, then we can't say that this is a book that explains all things. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let's crack open these ayats. Or do those in whose hearts is a disease think that Allah will not bring forth their spite? And if we please, we could show them to thee, so that thou shouldst know them by their marks, and certainly thou canst recognize them by the tone of their speech, and Allah knows your deeds. First word is the word heart. Okay, so are we speaking about the physical heart and a disease? On one level, we could say yes, because we know that when a person is aberrated, this aberration can produce what's called what? Psychosomatic illnesses, right?
Right.
Psychosomatic illnesses are illnesses that exist that really the doctors can't find anything that's wrong. Some of these diseases are rooted in our thinking, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But what does the word heart mean in Arabic? And then how is it connected to the supreme wisdom in the Holy Quran? Well, in Arabic, the word for heart is kalaba. And the word kalaba means mind, soul, spirit, but it also means the best part. Where else have you seen the best part?
Kept the best part preserved for himself.
And then, but if you now what's the question that produces that answer?
Why isn't the devil settled on the best part of the planet Earth?
Okay, so now we look at Lost Found Muslim question number 1, Lost Found Muslim lesson 1, question 1. So now we can look at this lesson and we can make it applicable to ourselves individually, right?
Yes, sir.
Lesson number 1 lays the base of our work today and gives the student a clear knowledge of himself and his heavenly home, the best part of the planet Earth. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So now lesson number 1 becomes a self-study, a self-analysis, you could say. So we say, why is the devil selling the best part of the planet Earth? The question is, what is devil? And what is devil with respect to the supreme wisdom in Dianetics? This is what we're going to go after. Everyone good so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then you got to look at the word disease. In the heart is a disease. Well, if heart represents mind, or the best part, then disease must be the devil, right?
Yes, sir.
So could we say, why isn't disease settled on the mind, Could we say that? Because the planet Earth, we could say, represents the body, right?
Yes.
Because the body comes from the earth.
Yes, sir.
So would the mind be the best part?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So then devil in our mind is like the devil that's settled on the best part of the planet Earth, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The Arabic word for disease is, the root word is marida. Here's an interesting concept. The first part, and the actual word that's in the ayah, the word that's used is maradun. If you look at maradun, the first part of that is the word mara, right? M-A-R-A.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In Buddhism, the word mara is the word for devil.
Interesting.
Okay, because just like, oh, go ahead.
I was just thinking about, they used to say how God brought them out of monkey marble clay. Like,
Wait, say that again?
like when God brings you out of monk marble clay.
Oh,
like
monk and
we're in
mar.
a pit. Yeah,
Oh.
right. Is that the same thing? Are we saying the same thing? Or I'm saying something different?
No, I mean, it might be connected, because muck and mar, to be muck and mar is like being in filth.
Right, exactly.
So we are saying the same thing when you look at allegorically. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm quite sure if you were to clear that word mar, and if someone has a access to a dictionary, look up the word mar and see if you can find the root, or the root of that word. And then when you find that, just bring it back to the table so we can kind of add it to this discussion. But in Buddhism, the Buddha went through 3 trials, just like Jesus went through 3 trials. The Buddha had to go through 3 trials and defeat Mara, just like Jesus was tempted in the wilderness and had to deal with the devil on 3 different trials. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So here, if we have a conversation with a Buddhist, we can talk with them on the same level. Okay. But the word Mara means to be sick or ill. It also means to be a psychopath. Isn't that a term used in Dianetics?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So you have what's called nafsi marid, which means disease in the spirit. So in their hearts is a disease. Wouldn't that be the same as aberration?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. All right, let's keep going.
Keep going.
So I think that Allah will not bring forth their spite. Okay, in their hearts is a disease. So think of Allah, think of the auditor as one who sits as a vicegerent of Allah. Can we do that?
Okay.
So as Allah, so the individual has a heart that has disease, and as Allah will bring forth their spite, doesn't the auditor bring forth their impediment?
Yes.
Doesn't the auditor bring forth their anger? Well, that's what the word in Arabic means. It means impediments or anger. So in this verse, we're looking at what could be seen as a principle that's found in auditing. Can we see that?
Yes.
Okay. And if you look at the word impediment, look at the 3 letters on the word impediment, IMP. And what does IMP mean?
Imp.
The word imp. And what is an imp? If you look up the word imp in the dictionary, imp is a little devil, a mischievous devil. So we have 7 impediments found in the self-improvement study program: pride, envy, greed, lust, fear, anger, and vanity. Don't we contain 7 impediments?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Therefore, we would have what, 7 devils? Therefore, we could say that this is a room full of legion. Is that what's in this room right now? Legion?
Right.
A bunch of aberrated people with lots of devils.
Yes.
So when you look at the spite, bring forth their spite, that could represent anything as far as the characteristics that are found on the lower tone scale below 2.0. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Sister Ania.
Interesting that you should remind us of imp being devil, and the word impediment. In that you see the word to impede, which means to hinder, to block, to slow down. And I looked up the word mar, M-A-R, and if I can get back to that page, it says that it's from the Old English meron, meaning to hinder, to damage.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting. There was a connection there.
Okay. It still works, though. Still works. Still works. And also, if you look, when you look at the word impede, one of the things that takes place with in the fire service, and I remember we actually had a fire where this took place. It was in a bodega, and they had the electrical cord from one of the machines was pressed up against between the wall and the machine. And what happens is when you apply pressure to an electrical cord, sometimes this also happens if someone has a chair that's on an extension cord. If that flow can't go through and you have what's called impedance, you have something that's blocking it, that because there's no flow, that cord heats up and the cord begins to burn. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Have you not ever become angry because you can't get your ideas to flow because people or things keep blocking your thoughts?
Yes.
So would that be the same as impedance?
Yes.
Mhm.
Would that person be an
Yeah.
imp?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So now we have the words marks, we have the word canst, and tone of their speech. So when you look at the word mark means a distinctive character or an object of attack. Now, I looked at this on another level, a distinctive character or an object of attack. So now when you deal with auditing and you find that impediment, you go down the time track with auditor, don't we find a specific person that is at the root of a specific engram?
All the time.
Okay, so could that be a distinctive character?
It is a distinctive character.
Could we also call that a valence?
I'm not sure.
Okay, a valence represents the personality of an individual that we dramatize when we become aberrated. Meaning, when we're aberrated, we act like someone else. Does that make sense?
Correct.
So when we go back, if any of us remember being audited, did an auditor take us back on a time track and we actually dramatized a certain behavior and then we realized that that behavior was not ours, but it belonged to someone else?
Yes.
Y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay, so then could we say we should know them so that thou shalt know them by their marks? Could we say know them by their valence?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay, and certainly thou can recognize them by the tone of their speech. So when we're auditing, don't we listen to what's being said and how it's said in order to get deeper into the engram?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Don't we use a repeater technique?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, why do we use a repeater technique? Because we came in contact with an engrammic command. It was either a bouncer, a grouper, a holder, a misdirector. We found something. We found a phrase that was tucked away that the individual used, but it belonged to someone else. So we were able to locate this by the tone of their speech. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Look, Brother Lookman.
Yes.
Okay, when you said it belongs to someone else,
Mhm.
for it to belong to someone else, then that individual who you came in contact with at that time in that moment, it embedded into that person's ears to get into the mind and stay there. So when that person is going through the auditing, the way that person has said to the person who's doing the auditing, that comes out of that person.
Yes. Yes.
Because if a person is being very vulgar or harsh words at the time and the tone is really up, and then that person is pulling that out and actually going to be doing the same kind of way that was received,
Yes.
and that person is pushing it out of them. So that's a good thing that he's taking that kind of tone of someone else and pulling it out, right?
Yes. They're doing the same thing that Jesus did to Legion by taking out the devils and putting them into the swine, basically. It's the same concept in the Bible that you find in Dianetics. You're contacting that phrase in the person. Okay, let's look at it from the perspective of the Holy Quran. Surah 114 says, the whispering of the slinking devil who whispers into the hearts of men from among the jinn and the men. Now, the way I look at that in application to Dianetics, when the whispering comes from the jinn and the men, the jinn represents the voice recordings that are within my mind, and from the men represents something that someone else says that aggravates me and re-stimulates me. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, but we get aggravated, but we don't know why. It's like, why does that phrase, why do I have that reaction? And after I come back to my senses and I say, man, I can't believe I acted that way. Why did that cause me to come out of character? Isn't that what we say?
Yes.
So we came out of character, but we clicked into another character, which is another valence. So when you're audited, the auditor will recognize a certain phrase. And then when they find that phrase, a skilled auditor will take that phrase and now draw the demon out of the person. The demon here, talking about the demon circuit or the phrase. Some of us say things to ourselves that keep us limited. It hinders our own determinism. And the phrase is actually something that someone said to us when we were growing up. So our lessons say, why does he fear now that he's a grown man? Because he was taught to eat the wrong food when he was a child, correct?
Correct.
Okay, take any one of the impediments. Why is he greedy now? Why is he proud now? Why is he fearful now? Well, he was taught to be fearful when he was a child. So you can use any of those things. All of us have these circuits that are still swimming around in our mind. And through auditing, we can locate it. And once we locate it, we realize that does not belong to me. What happens is you get back those attention units and you take off the strength of that phrase now, because now you know it doesn't belong to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You know, that's kind of like when I took a course in child early development, and they was talking about certain words you should not use with a child when they're developing at, you know, be between the ages of 13, 12 months on up to 24 months, because words like no, 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 pulls that individual into not doing anything, because they done heard it so much as saying no, no, no. So they say you have to use different words with a child to not suppress them, because you know we don't realize how we suppress a child between that age level. Well, that's the vulnerable age of a child of learning. And you're using certain words and the tone that you give really putting damages upon that individual, because you're already putting that into their mindset to say, you're not going to do this. You can't do this. You won't do it. And so you're developing that child. I mean, that, you know, that's what they were saying, that you have to be mindful of doing.
No, and it's interesting that you, did you finish?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's interesting that you say that, because one of the reasons why, when you look at the language that's used in the tech of Dianetics, by the language that's used by L. Ron Hubbard, what I was told was, and I think I also read this, that one of the reasons why he came up with his own language basically is he didn't want to use any words that could re-stimulate anyone, because then that would be self-defeating, correct?
Correct.
So he used a language that couldn't re-stimulate because you've never heard the words before. So you've never heard the word anatin before, which stands for analytical attenuation. So he came up with his own language so that it wouldn't re-stimulate. And that's the same, I think that's in the same realm of what you're saying. Oh, go ahead, Sister Denise.
You know, when I was watching the movie, she was talking about Emmett Till. He's from Chicago, so he's used to moving around freely. He's not used to immobile impediments to, and so she kept saying, you know, he's not used to, you can't look people in the eye and you know, the things that the Caucasian people had Black people doing, you know, down south. And when we come, you step off the sidewalk, things like that. And so why does he feel now, since he's a grown man? And I was just thinking about other than yourself. When you're like that, you're other than who they're making you other than who you are.
Mhm.
You in someone else's valences,
Yes.
And I was thinking about our people and how they made that as a way of life. That this is just what we do, and this is just how we think, and this is just what we eat, and not knowing that we have taken on another person's mindset, way of life. This Woody lives to the 10th power.
Yes, ma'am.
So all those thoughts was coming through my mind as
Mhm.
you all were talking about development, and that can be imps and impediments to your self-development when you're limited. You can only speak 400 words. No, you don't get more than that.
Mhm.
And how when you keep a person like that, they will never grow. It's like, you stump the flower grows because you're cutting it off. You
Mhm.
keep cutting it off when it starts to grow.
Mhm.
Oh, we messed up on me.
Mhm. Well, think of it like this. How could you express a great idea if you didn't have the language in order to express it?
Oh man. Okay. Woo.
And they kept us from education during slavery. We couldn't even read a book. Why? Because if you can limit, the minister says, if you can control the diameter of someone's knowledge, you control the circumference of their activity, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my. Okay.
Oh, thank you for that one. Go ahead, Sister Shayla.
The Quran is so right. When when you showed us this, I thought maybe 2 months ago or so, I went to Mass. I wasn't feeling my best, but I went and I was at Mass, and then all of a sudden somebody said, Sister Shayla is not well today. And I kind of I didn't tell anyone I wasn't well. They can read my tone, the way I was not myself. I had such a sciatic, I was sitting straight up in a chair, but I was in so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, how could they know? But this is how they knew. And I remember my captain saying, oh yes, she's not well. And I was very upset because I never told them I wasn't well. Why they're assuming I wasn't well, but this is how they knew. My wording was never there. My tone, my whole countenance probably was, I don't know, but they could tell that I wasn't myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was very, very clear. I read this in the Quran over and over and over. I never understood it until now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's true that not like it wasn't, but it's so applicable to the self when one can recognize where one is at.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I say things, I notice that I still say, I can't do this, but that I clearly saw in auditing where it came from,
Mm-hmm.
and how in depth I was carrying it all of my life, and it wasn't me. It's not me. It's
Mhm.
not me saying I can't do that. I still do it sometimes, but I catch myself and I said, no,
Mm-hmm.
I can do anything I
There
put
you
my
go.
mind to.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right. We all, just because we find the root doesn't mean that we're able to correct it overnight, but the fact that we can now be aware of it is in and of itself a blessing. Definitely. All right. So with the language, does the language indicate the source of the circuit? So let's keep going a little further now. The word mark in Arabic means the force imposed upon someone. Isn't that interesting? What a coincidence. So you mean to tell me that in their mind, heart is a disease, aberration, and that Allah, the auditor, can bring forth their spite, their impediments, and then you'll be able to see them by their marks or by the force that's imposed upon them. Does that make sense? In other words, when you audit someone, when you come in contact with the engram and you can locate the person that is at the root or the cause of that basic engram or the basic, wouldn't that person represent the force that was imposed on that individual?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're looking at this ayat, or we're looking at like a formula, because you can take these words out and interchange Dianetic terms in there and it will still give you the same thing, but it'll give you the same understanding on a mental level. Does that make sense? All right, now y'all gotta work with me. You still with me? Did I lose anyone?
Yes, sir. We're mute. Unmute. I was on mute. Yes, sir.
Okay, because I can't see everyone, so I got to go based on the tone of your speech.
I'm trying to see where you're going with it. I'm following you.
Okay.
I'm seeing where you.
Can you repeat that, brother Lukman?
Yes, ma'am. So when you look at this ayat, the way we look at it from a mathematical standpoint, this is like an equation. This ayat is a formula. And when you look at these key terms that are in here, the words that are in red, we find the equivalent of those words to Dianetic terms. And when we look at this from the standpoint of Dianetics, this ayat actually helps us to understand the Dianetic text. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you look at in their hearts is the disease, that's the same as in their mind, there's an engram. And Allah will not think that Allah will not bring forth their spite. And the word spite, we found out, meant those tones that are from 2.0 and down. So the auditor is like a little God that stands in the place of Allah. The auditor is like a vicegerent or a khalifa. They stand in the place of God in order to heal the blind, make the dumb man speak, make the dead walk. Does that make sense? The auditor is like a little Jesus that's removing demons from legion. Does that make sense?
Like a cleaner, yes.
And then it says, and then we could show them to thee so that thou shouldst know them by their marks, meaning you'll know them by the force that's imposed upon them. So when we audit someone, we're finding out what their suppressors are, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then it says, and certainly thou can recognize them by the tone of their speech. So if we listen to what a person says and how they say it, eventually we'll get to the individuals in their past that cause what's called ARC breaks or enforced ARC or inhibited ARC, correct? So we're interchanging the ayat from the Holy Quran with the terminology from Dianetics. Y'all with me still? Okay, go ahead, Sister Ania.
I just wanted to find out what is causing that static.
That I don't know. Let me see if I can pinpoint. I think it might have been someone was off mute. I think we're good now. Okay. So when you look at the force imposed upon someone, what we're saying is, does the language that a person uses indicate the source or the root of the aberration? So we're using the Holy Quran as a instrument in order to audit an individual, but we're using the words of Allah. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm
Yes, sir.
listening for the tone of everyone's speech so I can.
Yes, sir. My phone is on mute and then I have to come and take it off mute. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
So I tell you what, if you can just know how to hit that button and just put a hand raise up, well, no, you can't use a hand raise. Well, we'll just keep it moving. I ain't gonna worry about it. Then the tone of their speech, the word tone is lahni, and it means intelligence or understanding. So we will know someone's intelligence or understanding or where they are on the tone scale, yes, by the language that they use. High tone people use a different language. They have a different understanding than low tone people do. Is that correct? So now, what is devil? Our lessons say that a grafted man which is made weak or wicked. Now let's look at these terms in here. Here is another formula. Another formula. Because we already dealt with a grafted man represents a man that has an implant. That's what we dealt with last week, correct? Sister Anna, you still got your hand up, or you? Okay, you understand. Okay.
Well, I had a comment, but
Okay.
it was about your the previous subject.
Okay.
That's why I was going to put the hand down.
Okay.
I just wanted to give an example of that with somebody with that high tone. Some years ago, one of my relatives came to visit let's see, she would be my niece, came to visit on behalf of her parents. Somebody that the mother is of the Baha'i faith, and somebody that her father knew from years ago in Africa, was living here. This was in Phoenix at the time, was living in Phoenix and had passed away. And it was a good family friend. So they were not able to come. So they sent their daughter to represent. And I went with her to the service and all of that. So we met one of the individuals that had met my brother before. And we all went out to dinner. To make the story short, we all went out to dinner. But this man was so incredible. He made such an impact on me because of his tone. It was so high. No matter what took place, if the service was not the best in the restaurant that we were at, if the waiter came and spilled the water and just different things like that, nothing upset him. He did not have a bad word to speak about anybody. And he saw the good in every single person. To him, you could just tell he was so enamored with just living, just being alive, life itself. Everybody was special. He looked at you, if you spoke, he looked at you with such interest, all into you. He was so into it, like he got enjoyment out of every breath and every word that you spoke. And even if a person spoke on a much lower tone than what he did, I witnessed him do exactly what we're taught to do, which is to go right above where that person is and start there and speak to where you bring them up, constantly, always up, higher up the tone scale. And that's, as you were talking about the tone that we should have, that's what came to mind, was this gentleman. Just a phenomenal individual. And of course, we know that we see that in the minister. But just to meet somebody else who was of a different faith, different lifestyle, different nationality, and all of that, and just to witness that there are people on that, it makes you want to aspire to be like that all the time. So I just wanted to share that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's most definitely, because there's been many times, I've looked at how the minister responds and just the whole energy, the atmosphere that he brings with him. And there are many times I say to myself, boy, if I could just be at that state of peace where you're just, oh soul that is at rest, that, that's the destination I would think that we all want to strive to arrive at.
Yes, and that fits the gentleman exactly, that phrase.
Praise be to Allah. I hope that one day get there. Let's see. So we said a grafted man is we dealt with the concept of implant and how it's connected to the teachings we have with the needle in the brain, which is made weak. And the word weak, when you clear that term, you come to the word attenuate. And then when you deal with wicked, you deal with aberrated. But now we're going to see how this question and answer from the Supreme Wisdom connects to Dianetics and the Holy Quran. We're going to connect all three together again. So now, could we say that a grafted man is uncivilized or savage? Could we say that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Is a savage an individual that has lost the knowledge of self and living a life of a beast? I believe we can agree to that as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So savage means a person has lost the knowledge of self. It sounds like they're out of valence and is living the life of a beast. We could say dramatization of the valence of another. Could we make that connection?
Yes, sir.
Because if you're out of valence, haven't you lost the knowledge of yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Aren't you and I acting other than self?
Yes, sir.
The question is, who are we acting like?
Mhm.
When we can answer that question, we get more of our theta back. It is the implants that cause anatin, what's called analytical attenuation, that produces aberration. So we have these implants in our head. And have you ever experienced this before? You're about to do something. Someone does something to upset you, and then you forgot what it is that you're about to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
That slight little aberration caused analytical attenuation, where you sit there and they do something, you're like, now what was I about to do? What was I? And you gotta look around. You gotta look around the room like what you're about to say is located somewhere in the room. You look around. That's an example of aberration causing analytical attenuation or the weakening of the thinking, and it caused us to forget something. Go ahead, Sister Ania.
Okay, just that word attenuate, which I know here it says which is made weak, but I just wanted to put some more mass on it, so I looked it up.
Okay.
And it said to reduce the force, effect, or value of. So I thought that, you know, when you look at what has happened to us as a people, you know, we reduced our God force and our ability to effect our outcome, and made us devalue ourselves.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am. That's right on point. Is that it, Sister Ania?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you for that. Go ahead, Sister Gina.
Yes, sir. Is that the same as losing attention units?
Yes, you can say that's the same thing. In Dianetics, he doesn't use the word anatin or analytical attenuation. He uses the word analytical shutdown. But it is the same as losing attention units. Because the more attention units we lose, the more aberrated we become. The more attention units we can gain, the more we get access to our analytical mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to look at what is the relationship between the terms implant, anatan, and aberration that's found in the text of Dianetics and the wisdom found in the Holy Quran. Everyone good so far? Is this making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me go ahead and take care of that. Let me take care of that. Let me take care of that. Okay. Now, remember cycle of action? There's start, which is the birth.
Change.
There's growth. Well, there's start, change, stop, but change actually has three parts. You have growth, you have conservation, and then you have decay. That's your change. So start, change, stop is the basic cycle of action. And then this right here is like an extended cycle. And the last stage is stop or death. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Our aberration, now cycle of aberration is not something I got from the tech. This is just what I do. I take the tech that L. Ron Hubbard gave and I put it in the language that I know. And this actually helps me when I study, because just by putting it in a cycle, I can automatically just remember it now. I don't know why that works. I just know for me that works. So everything becomes a cycle of action now. So a cycle of aberration, the start is the implant. Okay, that's the needle in the brain. And when you deal with the island of Patmos, you know, we were talking about how Patmos represents an aberrated environment, okay, or the engram. That's how all this stuff starts. So what grows? You have what's called the key-in or the lock. And I'm going to deal with each of these specifically. You have the key-in and the lock. Because you can have an engram your whole life and it never becomes active until it becomes keyed in and then locked. But the key-in is actually the first lock. But he just gave a specific name for it. It's a key-in. And then what happens? You have what's called restimulation or dramatization. Okay. Then decay is what? What decays? Our mind power. That's the analytical attenuation. And then where does it all stop? Aberration. So can you see how there's a step-by-step process? We become aberrated. There's a cycle. Okay. There's something that's already embedded in our mind that is the source or root of madness. Someone does something or said something and presses our button. That's the key in or the lock. Then we act out of character. That's the restim and the dramatization. And then acting other than our own self, we don't think rationally, nor do we speak rationally, nor do we carry out rational behavior. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the analytical attenuation. And as a result, people look at us as what? Aberrated. It's a complete cycle. And then if we're dead mentally, we're told that spiritual death eventually leads to what?
Physical death.
Physical death. Because once we go below a certain tone, then our engrams click on, our implants kick on, the needle in our brain kicks on, and then what happens? We begin to engage in behavior that's counterproductive or what's called counter-survival. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So based on the Dianetic Tech Dictionary, here's what an implant is. I'm gonna go through this quick because we just went through it last week. A painful and forceful means of overwhelming a being with artificial purpose or false concepts in a malicious attempt to control and suppress him. That's kind of like what you find on TV nowadays. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It also means an electronic means of overwhelming the thetan with a significance. And I thought that someone would probably, Sister Anna, you got your hand up again?
Yes, sir, I did.
Go ahead.
That whole cycle of aberration, and something that was mentioned earlier, it made me think of an actor or actress and getting into character and especially if it's a bad, shouldn't use the word bad, but
An antagonist.
right, if they're playing a wicked character or something like that, and they have to get into character so much, how does that affect them, and how can they stop themselves from being affected by that, where it takes over? Or because the mind, whatever is presented to the subconscious mind, it doesn't distinguish between it being real or not, so it takes it as real. So what would be the
It's interesting that you state that, because with Heath Ledger, I think that was his name, who played the Joker, that his last, if I'm not mistaken, I believe his last movie was the Joker before he committed suicide. Am I correct on that one?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
I believe that was the case. And then there are those that said that for him getting into that character actually affected him.
Wow.
And I think if you look at any actor that has played what's called the antagonist in any movie, there are some actors and actresses that have mentioned that a certain character, a certain script had an effect on them. Was that all you had, Sasania?
Right, so how what is it that they do to counteract that, after they've played the part and try to go back to living their lives as business, as business as usual?
That's a good question. Well,
Yeah, brother Lukman,
go ahead, Sister Tina.
I remember the minister said in, what was it, in the Swan Song, or either Sister Ava's Janaza service, the Swan Song, about playing parts, because he mentioned, what's his name? 10 something percent, 50 Cent, and that he always is playing a part of someone that kills his brother. And, with the lifestyle that he used to live, he's always reliving that part. And he said that's why we have to have our own theater, I'm paraphrasing, our own productions companies where we're writing the script. He said, otherwise we'll be, constantly playing parts that Satan gives us, that keeps us in the mud, that keeps us being, acting satanic. I'm paraphrasing. Yeah. So we just, because it's hard, so not even entertaining Satan's roles that he give us helps us not to continue in that. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Yes, sir.
Okay, and Sister Anya, I'll put it this way: how difficult is it for us to get into character of a righteous Muslim? How difficult is it for us to get out of the old character and get into our real character, which is Allah himself? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, that made me think of the minister's words on pages 312 and 313 of Closing the Gap. When he talks about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said that we are in the kindergarten of Master Fard Muhammad's wisdom. We are moving upward in our learning in this classroom or kindergarten, which has stages that we as a people have gone through from the 1930s to where we are in the present. So that's what it made me think of, that we're having to be go through this stage by stage, little by little, to get us out of that old character that we had and to take on this new growth and this new character, being made fit for the kingdom of God. So it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. and we have to go through lots of different trials and experiences that show us the negative part of ourselves that we didn't even realize was there, to expose the root of it, so that it can be killed off and replaced with a much better character.
Mhm.
So
So would you say that we just have to be patient with ourselves?
definitely.
Mhm. You know, when divers have to do deep sea diving, and as they begin to ascend from certain depths, if they come up too fast, it could actually kill them, because they get something called the bends, where they ascend too quickly from the depths of the ocean back to the surface. That's a great allegory or allegorical representation or metaphor that shows that, you know, even for ourselves, part of our frustration is that we try to move too fast. And there have been times, and I can point to myself, and if you can point to yourself, then that's fine. When you move too fast, you wind up going back to that which you're trying to get away from.
Yep, yes, sir.
So we just have to be patient with ourselves.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Sister Patricia. Ooh, time is
Yes, sir. I'm gonna have to excuse myself from the session tonight.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Make it so long.
All right.
Oh,
I'm gonna try to go just a couple, with your permission, I'll try to go just a couple more minutes, and then I'll save the rest of this for part 2 for next week. Anyone in favor of a few more moments?
well, Brother Lukman, I'm in favor of a few more moments, but I have to go as well. I have a call I had to make at 8 o'clock. And
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Here's
So
what I'll do.
Yeah.
We've gone 2 hours. We will, God willing, we'll pick it up from here next week on Sunday at 6 p.m. inshallah. So let us go ahead and close it out, since it is, what time? It is what, 8 o'clock? 8:05?
8:04, 8:05, yes, sir.
Okay, let's go ahead and close it out, because I don't want to take up all your time. We'll pick it up from here next week, inshallah. Any final thoughts, questions, concerns?
Brother Lukman,
Yes.
next week, I think you'll be in Chicago. I don't know if you'll be able to have this.
Oh, you know what? And I told myself, don't say anything for next week, because you're supposed to be in Chicago. So if I get back home by 6, I'll send out an email in advance to let you know either way. But if I'm back in time, then we'll go ahead and pick up part 2. So closing comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, corrections, suggestions before we close it out. If not, all right, let's go ahead and close it out in prayer. Attention prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Master of the day of judgment in which we now live, the alone we serve, thine aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray if they have heard thy teaching. Ameen.
Amen.
Family, remember, I believe Closing the Gap has their Zoom meeting at 8 o'clock. I'm gonna try to actually swing over there myself. So inshallah, I will see you on the next Zoom. May Allah continue to bless us all with the light of understanding. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Walaikum salam, sir.